Hey, my name's Matt Tardiff, and I'm the primary animator on the new game coming out, Fireborn. And what I'm going to show you right now, it's just we're going to have kind of an ongoing production, videos and blogs, just little things that are going on during the process, and maybe little things that are like, oh my god, this might be cool, someone might enjoy this. Like right now I'm going to talk about animation layers, and even if you've heard of them before, maybe even used them, then cool, you might learn something new. And if you've never heard of them before, then you're going to just blow your mind, and well, not like that, but then you might stop watching it. But you know, you get the point. So if you want to check out the webpage, Fireborn the game, or not Fireborn the game, fireborngame.com, and you can kind of look at a little story about it, see get a little bit of a feel for what the game's going to be like, and look at some of the cool characters and artwork and whatnot. And yeah, but it's going to be awesome because we have some awesome creatures, awesome characters, and just all around awesomeness. Jonah Loeb is creating some amazing characters that every time he comes out with something and shows it to me, I'm like, I want to work on that. I can't wait. He's got a couple of characters coming up pretty soon that I'm just foaming at the mouth to work on. So, but that aside, what I'm going to go over today is just how I'm approaching a variant of a death that was already approved. So we have a death already that was just, a very simple death. Get knocked down, like that, and that's it. So that's a very simple, very basic sort of sack of potatoes death. And a couple of the other variants are going to be, him, turn my mask, him, like, oh no, now I'll never get to see the final episode of whatever my favorite show is. Woe is me. But somewhere with a little bit more impact, a little bit more pizzazz when it comes to death stuff. So instead, while I'm kind of in between doing that right now, I'm working on one that I'm kind of having some trouble with. So instead of beating my head against the wall, I decided just do a variant on the one that I already have, just to kind of have something else to throw in there. And instead of doing a whole brand new animation that is basically would have just dropped in the middle of the ground anyway, I decided to use animation layers to give me some opportunity to use what I already have and change some things up. So often when I use animation layers, I'll use them, they by default are additive. So all that means is whatever you keep adding on to the layers are adding to whatever's beneath it. They're not overriding it, they're just adding to it. So, which is cool on one hand. You got to be careful because you could if you did the same motion over and over again, yes, you're going to add to that every single time. One cool thing that I use it for, aside from this, is let me go ahead and open up the idle cycle, and I'll give you kind of an idea what that might be. Is dealing with the idle. Don't save because I didn't do anything. Oops. Okay, so we have this idle cycle here. It's like, and I actually use an animation layer on this little shaky thing, but I baked it down and got rid of it. So let's say overall I like it, but then my director or I tell myself, dude, this sucks, or your pose is terrible, or I want his leg to be over there, and then I look at myself back in the mirror and I'm like, man, stop yelling at me, telling me what to do. You're me, I'm you. So the cool thing about the animation layers is because it's additive, I can alter the pose, still keeping the animation underneath, as long as it's not drastic. If the animation is the animation that I have here fits the pose. Now, if I suddenly change the pose up like this, it's like, hey man, what's up? Like popping, locking crazy. if I change the pose up something like that, then sure, the animation's not going to work the same because the mechanics of it don't work anymore. It doesn't. You expect it to be, you expect it to have it this certain weight when it comes to the mechanics of it. So, so what I would do is I'd select everything, come over to the Anim tab. Base animation isn't usually what you see. It's I can actually select that just to show you how it would be if you're starting from scratch. So you'd have everything selected. You come over here, and just like creating a layer, you hit the little blue ball on the white blanket, and it automatically creates an animation layer, which is empty. Anytime you create, the first time you create an animation layer, it automatically creates a base animation layer that has all the animation you've done so far. In a way of kind of protecting it. And you still work off of this layer when you're working on your stuff. You work on it as if it doesn't exist, like it, it's whatever. So I have this empty layer up top. So I'm just going to call it pose change. Okay, yes, can't do spaces. God, Maya's so fickle. Okay, and one of the other things I like to do is to change the key color. So I can right click on the red square. I'll do my first pass as green. The more layers I add, of course, to change the colors up. So because this is a 1 to 60 idle, I'm just going to key the first frame because it's not moving throughout, so it doesn't matter. So I can come over here and say, well, I want it to be more on this side, and maybe I want to pick up this, and since I'm moving things over, I'm going to go ahead and move this back. And yes, what I'm doing now aren't gigantic changes, but I'm doing what I want to do based off of made up input that I just gave myself. Yeah. And the thing is, with some of this, sometimes why I use animation layers for something like this too, is because yes, you could go into the graph editor and manipulate the curve to do this, but it's so much easier just to do it this way because it's not changing anything but the pose, and you still have the animation on there. And I might even be able to stretch it out a little bit further. Okay, so there we go. Still have my animation. I can see what it looks like on either side. So that is the amazingness of animation layers. Whoa. So let's just jump back over to the death real quick to kind of wrap this up. Let's jump over to the, okay, good. You get an idea of how I'm using the layers in this part. So the other option when you're doing layers is to have it as an override. So your two options are additive and override. Additive has already been explained. Override obviously should be self-explanatory. It completely cancels out the animation underneath it and lets you do something completely different. Now sometimes that's cool, and sometimes it's kind of a pain. So what I did with this, I got the normal death, and I wanted to do something else just as he hits the ground, or something like that, maybe around here. I wanted to do something else, and I wasn't really sure what that would be, and so I just kind of threw some ideas around my brain pan, and thought, well, it'd be kind of cool if when he hit the ground, he kind of had this like, where he was kind of arcing up, kind of like he's being electrocuted, but I mean, kind of those vibrations, but not necessarily like he's being electrocuted, because I'm I'm sort of throwing it in there. I'm going to show the guys, and they may come back and say, yeah, that's not exactly what we want, or they may completely like love it and be like, yes. So because I'm kind of throwing out a variant here that isn't going to take me that long, and especially since I'm using an animation layer, it's really not going to take me that long to just throw out a variation and say, hey, what do you think about this? So yeah. So over here, I used an override on this part. So basically, when the animation came up to this part here, I had this layer override what's going on underneath, and I could completely start my animation from scratch in that area. Now, I had to take the pose from right before the change and copy it and apply it to the right after the change, because otherwise it snaps right back to T-pose. And I'll show you an example of that in a second. Now, the way to do this so it doesn't override the whole thing is you can key the weight. So I'm sure there's a way of selecting this, but let me see. Select slow change. Okay, yeah. So there's the weight. You can just come up here with it selected. Say display key tips from channel box. And so yeah, my weight is changing from 13 to 15. So if you have no idea what I just did, I just typed in select slow change, which is the name of the layer. It selected it, we see it, and because I wanted to look at the weight and not just all the keys for the character, I just came up here with it selected to the timeline, did display key ticks to from channel box, because it's usually set to active. And this is really just for demonstration purposes so I can show you. So the regular animation plays up to 13, and then I set a key on the layer because we can key the weight. And then I go a couple frames down, and you notice down here it changes. So I keyed it again on 15 and let it interpolate between 13 and 15. I'm not trying to split hairs on slow in, slow out on this. I just make it do what I want to do. And it's doing it, instead of doing that hard 13 to 14, it helps it blend just a little bit better. It's I'm sure in some cases that might really be noticeable, so it would require a lot more finesse, but regardless. So keying the weight. So then automatically, normally what it would do is go right to T-pose. So, or go right to the, well, of course the fingers aren't zeroed out, but it would go right to T-pose. So, yeah, no big deal. Not really, because let's go ahead and hit key for that. Just hit delete. So that's normally what would happen. So what I would do is, let's say, I forget, I know I'm screwing this up a little bit because it's already been fixed, so I'm kind of breaking it to show you what I would do. But you can either copy the pose. I mean, sometimes that's okay, but I use a script called pose to shelf, which I'm sure you could find on Creative Crash if you've never been there before. Come on, internet, do your magic. And yes, you now get to see my Trello page for Fireborn. So Creative Crash, you can type in pose to shelf, and there it is. So what's amazing about it, it's just a simple little script. I can say, I'll just type in gray because I wanted to save that pose. And it just puts it up here. There's two little people holding hands. They're like, hey, we're here to save you. We're going to do it together. I was going to say something about the Wonder Twins, but I forget how it goes. So we go over here to the T-pose, which it starts off at, and I say, boom, haha, isn't that amazing? Okay, so we got a regular death. So in that, what I did was went ahead and turned that on, and just notice my keys are oh, because I still have it displaying from channel box. So to go back to that, active, go display key ticks, active. So of course I'm using green keys on this, and the first thing I did was just do something very simple where I just have the character moving up into this arc, and it's just doing a slow move up the entire way. Now later on down the line I made some changes, that's why he's being all spastic, but I made just an initial change from top to bottom, knowing that I'm going to use that to support some of the other changes I'm going to make. It's kind of like when you work overlap into an object instead of just relying on offsetting. So to recap, regular death, variant, and aside from the shake, what I really started doing on this is just moving it up, starting from the core and just moving the core up, knowing that I'm going to change things. It's going to use that to kind of ripple out. And okay. So then I added another one on top of that, which added a little bit more shake in the torso. And then I added a bit more on top of that, which added more rotation to that shake. And I can come in here and add more on top of that by creating an animation layer. I'm going to change the color to blue, and I'll say hand spaz. And I'm not going to really use this, but I'll just kind of illustrate it to make a point. So I'm going to come in here, and where I really want it to happen is I'll anchor. I know that I want it to start happening at 16, and I want the spazziness, I want it to stop at 37, because that's when he's on his way down. I don't want the spaz to still keep happening. So I anchor it on either side, and if you've used Motion Builder and worked with mocap at all, you'll know what I'm talking about as far as anchoring like that. But so between 16, okay, so I'm just, and this is a fun opportunity to just kind of like straight ahead, just move things around. Don't worry about how it's going to look necessarily. Just have a general idea of what you want to accomplish, and you'll be good. Like, so that's fine that it is that way. It's not as fast as I would like it, but that's okay, because now I'm going to add another one on here, and this is where I can get into the using a lot. A project that I worked on a few years ago, I had, I think, up to 20 layers on this character's tail, and it turned out awesome in the end. That was my first time really working with layers, and ever since then I've been a huge fan. So same thing, 1637. Yeah, 37. So then I can come in here and add on every other frame, add some different spaz. And the thing is, if it doesn't work, then cool, undo it or delete the layer, no big deal. You know. And hell, let's throw in another layer. When I start adding on to one on top of the other, I'll tend to keep it the same, same color. Well, I act like I've done that before, but this is the first time I'm thinking about it, and it seems like a really good idea, so I'm going to pretend like it's something I've done all this time. So yeah, there you go. So what else could I do? I could do something really spastic, like making changes over like the course of one frame, but not happening every single time. So Yeah, see? It's looking better already. And I'll do too. And it's like, for me, yes, you could build some of this stuff into your animation straight off the bat, and that's cool. I don't like to do that. If the way that I block, the way that I plan things out, if I were to try and do this, it would be such a magical headache that it wouldn't be as fun. I like doing the blocking, the planning process, and then just having fun with it, going straight ahead, kind of not blindly. I mean, it's just you either know how to do it right off the bat, or it just comes with experience. And for me, it's come with experience, because straight ahead at any point would not have worked for me before. Just because, maybe it was a lack of confidence and skill or whatever, but it just didn't work. And now I just completely have fun with it. Like a yoga greedling. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I know I'm working towards a flat belly, but this is insane. Mr. Greedling, say goodbye. Bye-bye. My arm's broken. I don't know what happened. Bye-bye. I'll see you later. Some other time. My arm's broken. And so am I. Goodbye. Goodbye. You've all been wonderful. Yes, it's all been wonderful. I have my eye on you. Ha 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 ha. Alright, so until next time, when there's more cool stuff that comes along, I'll be recording more and hopefully stay on track, but otherwise, see you later.